Welcome to the Somatic Coaching Academy podcast. I'm Ani Anderson.
And I'm Brian Trzaskos. Join us as we explore the science
and art of trauma-sensitive somatic practices and tools.
Strengthen your practice as a coach, therapist, or holistic professional.
Master the art of motivating even the most challenging clients when you understand how to tap into and unlock your client's complete holistic intelligence.
If you want to learn the most cutting-edge, research-supported skills for personal and professional mastery, you've come to the right place. Let's get this conversation started.
Hi, and welcome to the Somatic Coaching Academy podcast. We're on episode 129. Good morning.
Good morning.
Brian, how are you?
I'm doing great. I am so ramped up for today.
He is jazzed up.
I'm ready.
What are we talking about?
Oh God, this topic, I've wanted to just soapbox on this topic for so long. I can't tell you how many times in classes we get to this topic and I just say, I'm going to have to talk about this another time because I don't have enough time right now to talk about it. So now we're taking the time to talk about it. And so we're going to talk about the body's outlawed wisdom. Basically.
Cowboys.
Yeah. So
we're going to talk about what cowboys do.
Well, cowboys do this stuff.
Outlaws.
Yeah,
I cannot wait to hear what this is
about.
So
here's the deal. So the human body, actually all animals are designed to spontaneously regulate their nervous systems.
Oh, I like this topic too. Okay.
Question is, will there be room enough for both of us here?
I know what we're talking about. Oh, we're on the same team, I think. Yeah, let's go.
Kind of thing. And so they're designed, every animal is designed to regulate itself, regulate their own nervous system, specifically so that traumatic levels of tension don't accumulate in the nervous system. That's the design. All animals, I'll say it again, animals on the planet, including humans, right, are designed to do that. However, humans are also arguably the most traumatized and unhealthy species on the planet.
Yeah.
Can you
Our
think
big
of
old brains, man, we're just so smart.
Can you think of any other animal on the planet that is as traumatized, self-traumatized as the human? There might be other animals that are traumatized by humans.
Right. Yeah.
But no other animal on the planet traumatizes itself or other animals as frequently or as intensively as humans do.
Yep.
I think you can say the same thing for health. Humans are by far the unhealthiest human on the planet. Now,
animals on the planet?
Yeah, humans are the most unhealthy animal on the planet. Now, there might be other animals that are less healthy, but because of human interaction with them, not because if humans left them alone, animals would be able to figure it out. They'd be fine. They'd figure out how to regulate their nervous systems, vent trauma, and be pretty healthy, right? But as humans, we tend to traumatize ourselves, traumatize the environment, traumatize other animals, and then bring unhealthiness, that might not be a word, to ourselves and to our environment and animals around us as well.
Preach.
Right? So just want to say, what is up with that?
Yeah. It's our stinking cortex.
Right? We're so smart, right? We're so smart as people. And this is what we've created for ourselves.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so one of the reasons, we talk a lot about beliefs on the podcast, right? We talk a lot about the power of belief. And a lot of people like to talk about the power of belief in terms of you can create anything that you believe in, like have a belief and you can create, and that's true. But I also want to just bring us back to the idea of how powerful limiting and conditioned beliefs are. Because as humans, we have been taught to devalue, right? Devalue and even openly ridicule the exact mechanisms that our nervous system has been designed with to regulate itself.
Keep it healthy. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? I mean, so this is what we're going to kind of talk about today. This is the body's outlawed wisdom. The body has the wisdom to regulate itself, to keep you healthy, to actually even move you into a thriving state. And the reason that doesn't happen isn't because the body's not capable of doing
It's
it.
not the body.
It's not the body.
Uh-huh.
It's the conditioned beliefs that we have been perpetuated for generations, for thousands of years, that openly restrict, limit, ridicule, exile, punish, all those words, the exact things that would help us stay healthy, productive, and actually even keep our hearts open to one another. These things that are being ridiculed and marginalized are the exact mechanisms that would create a more compassionate world, that would actually have us care about each other more, actually feel when someone else is being harmed, so that we would feel that too, and we would then stop doing it. These mechanisms, or these beliefs, cut off the mechanisms of natural feedback of connectedness and collaboration and empowerment as mammals. It's like I don't know how else to get more fired up about this
God, I
topic.
love
I
it.
mean, it's
And
just I could
because
soapbox about this. It makes me really I don't really I wouldn't say angry, but very enthusiastic, like really passionate. I'm really passionate about this topic. Once you start understanding like what we've done to ourselves.
yeah,
But here's the thing, we actually don't need to even learn anything. Your body already knows how to do it. You just have to
just let
let
it.
your body regulate itself.
But also to your point, we have been conditioned because of different caregivers and people who have looked after us as children, or whatever, about what's right and wrong in our
Yes.
societies, which has conditioned us to not only not do these things, but not believe that our body is helpful,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so we could sit around here and blame society and all the rule makers all day long, which might feel good to just let off some steam, but isn't really going to do anything. But really, what I think we're talking about today is how you can reclaim and take back your power, because you can do this stuff for yourself,
Yeah.
like you can do it, especially once you're grown up, once you're not in school, to be perfectly honest. I think we have more of a choice
Choice. Yeah.
around how we self-regulate. When kids are in school, they do not have much of a choice around how to self-regulate, to be perfectly
They
honest.
do. And as a parent, you do have ways to empower your child to self-regulate and
Yep.
help empower them uh, and insulate them, let's say, from the negative outcomes of doing self-regulation things.
Absolutely. When I first had my kids, a person who I really admired in the holistic space said to me, when you decide if you're going to send your kids to school and where you're going to send them, just know that you're going to have to, what's the word? You're going to have to do more stuff, supplement.
Supplement.
You're going to have to supplement whatever you choose. And I thought that was
Mhm.
so cool, because sometimes we can just, again, get in the habit of blaming the system and saying, my kid's stuck or there's nothing we can do. But you're going to have to supplement no matter what you choose. So these are things that you can do to help your kid, even if they are in a regular school system, to be able to supplement and be able to regulate
Mhm.
their nervous system. And we're not just talking about, not talking about kids, because what can happen actually as soon as we talk about
Mhm.
kids, and it's a soapbox of mine, Brian, is we think we need to tell all the kids about this. We need to teach all the kids about this. I'm pretty passionate about the fact that we actually have to teach the parents and the adults. We have to teach the grown-ups about this stuff, because when the grown-ups are comfortable within themselves to do these things, then the kids are just going to naturally do
Mhm.
them. So sure, teach kids tools in school, but also like teach the adults, and adults, do your due diligence, do your business, be an
Mhm.
outlaw.
Yeah, be an outlaw. I love it. Oh, yeah, this is amazing. So this conditioning, this limited conditioning, starts, at very, very young ages, like in or before preschool
Yep.
for most kids. And that's when these natural self-regulation responses are deemed inappropriate or socially unacceptable. Think about things that are when a child goes to preschool, like a teacher or another parent is saying, your kid really shouldn't do that, or we noticed your kid was doing this. And we talk about things like tantrums, like temper tantrums. Those are actually natural self-regulating mechanisms.
What else are we gonna talk about?
Well, we're talking about, and just in general right now, we're talking about wiggling and moving, right? We're talking about loud voices. We're talking about these things that are deemed as inappropriate,
Laughing,
laughing.
crying.
So we've got a list here we're going to kind of go through to try to just call out some of these self-regulation things that get deemed inappropriate or socially acceptable. But just to pause here for a moment and say that is actually how they get wired in as deep conditioned patterns. Because remember that humans are mammals. And because humans are mammals, we are social creatures and we are conditioned to thrive and be safe within a society, within a culture. And that being removed from the society is deemed dangerous and threatening to life. And so that's just baked into our DNA as mammals. So the best way to get to conform behavior and build a limiting belief system is to threaten exile of a child from a group. And so that is not socially acceptable. And so you're going to need to sit by yourself in the corner, facing the corner, or you're going to be ridiculed in front of everyone. So then everyone else is free now to ridicule you as well. You're going to go to the corner of the playground by yourself. No one's going to play with you. Think about all those painful things that happen to children. But all of those things are intended to modify a child's behavior to then behave in socially appropriate ways.
So they can conform.
So they can conform. But what if what they're being asked to conform to are exactly the not doing these self-regulation skills that actually keep them healthy and safe? And then we wonder why in kids, there's all kids with behavior challenges. Is it possible? I'm not an ADHD expert, but my inclination is to say there's something going on with the nervous system regulation. And is it possible that adults with ADHD perhaps didn't have as much freedom or enough freedom to self-regulate as children? And is it perhaps now, even when children are in school and deemed to be socially appropriate or behavioral problems, is they just need more opportunity to be able to self-regulate, and the opportunity within the structure of the learning environment isn't there? I think there's a whole bunch of contextual and structural things we could talk about, which we don't want to get off topic with today. But I'm just, again, I get really passionate about this. I can see all the tethers kind of come together with not only chronic health challenges that we have in this country and adults in general, but also systemic challenges, behavioral issues, mental health challenges. A lot of it I see linked back to the limitations on our capacity for the bodies to just regulate themselves.
It's a way that nobody has to say to a kid outright that we get to learn that the body is not is bad. The body is bad.
Right.
Nobody has to say it verbatim, but we just get the sense that my body is bad because I'm having this energy go through me or urges or whatever. And it's so easy to translate my body is bad to I am bad, right?
Yep.
And then different people act on that kind of a perceptual lens in different ways. And some people clam up and try to be perfect, and some people have behavioral problems, and it just lends itself to all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, yeah. So we have a list here. It's not an exhaustive list. It's not a complete list of all the ways that your nervous system regulates itself, but it's just some very simple examples that are easy to talk about in a podcast sort of thing. So one of the first ones is it's gaining a lot of traction out there on social media. A lot of people are talking about it, certainly in trauma sensitive and somatic spaces, is the whole idea of shaking. So, people are doing shaking practices now. I saw a magazine and like Vogue or an article in Vogue magazine or something recently on shaking. I mean, it's showing up in like popular places now.
Somebody sent me an Elmo video of Elmo shaking
Yeah, so
recently. Even
yeah,
Elmo's doing it. Taylor Swift's Shake It Off.
yeah, so so we're seeing
Yeah.
some traction. We go, oh my God, so it's coming to light. We're in a revolution now of somatics bringing to the surface, and that's why I'm really hopeful for some change in the upcoming, let's be honest, decades probably, not year, decades, because that's how slow things tend to change. But you never know. So when a person shakes, when an animal shakes, you see birds doing this, right? Birds at the bird feeder will kind of shake. Mammals, your cats, your dogs. Lizards and things like that don't necessarily do this particular trauma response, but mammals do. I've never seen reptiles do this, but maybe they do.
Shake?
Yeah, I don't pay enough attention to reptiles, but all mammals do this, and birds do this as well. So this is basically a trauma response to move out of that dorsal vagal shutdown. Reptiles might do this because reptiles do have a dorsal vagal system.
Well,
I'm going to look
listeners,
into
I
that.
guarantee you will hear about
I'm going to
this
look into
next
that one.
time.
Okay. But anyway, let's just go to humans for a second. So humans shake to move out of the freeze response. And this is something, again, that all animals do. And so you'll see humans do this when they appear to have been through a traumatic experience, but it's also a thing that now as adults, you can do on a regular basis to help to regulate your nervous system. And it's something that I believe we should allow children to do when they spontaneously need to do that, which leads to the next one, which is like wiggling, like just spontaneous movement, you know? Like shaking kind of has a really strong adaptive kind of trauma-centered kind of
Yeah.
response, but wiggling is what happens before shaking.
Mm. Yeah, wheeling's a little different. I was just thinking about when I get a massage or acupuncture, sometimes I have spontaneous shaking that happens. And if I'm with a new practitioner, I will say, um, this happens with my body when I get body work, and I'm very okay with it because I'm aware that some people think that something's wrong, or they'll ask me, "Are you okay?" Which is just a sign and symptom that we don't that we disallow the
Yeah.
shaking stuff. Anyway,
Yeah,
um,
I was actually laughing. I was getting acupuncture yesterday and I had needles, all in me. And I was like going into this kind of deep place and I get the same thing, I get like a twitch kind of
yeah,
response. So I was twitching, I had needles in me. I'm like,
yeah,
oh my God, did I
yeah,
knock
yeah.
the needles out or something like that? I'm like, hey, I got a twitch to that sort of thing.
So the wiggles.
Yeah, so wiggles are, or we can call them a spontaneous movement too. So
Wiggles have gotten some positive press also over the years,
cool.
specifically for preschoolers.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, yeah, so that's great for preschools. I'd like to see it carried into
Get it?
all the way through high school, sort of thing.
Could you imagine high schoolers wiggling?
Wiggling, because wiggling, what it does, it vents off accumulated amounts of muscle tension. So during the day, especially if you think about people, kids sitting at desks learning. And so when kids
Already.
are kindergarten, like there's your desk and you get ready to sit in this desk for the next
God,
50 years,
right?
because especially with the advent of technology and computers, more and more people are just sitting at desks, looking at screens and inhibiting their natural responses. I mean, how many clients do you have where we have to encourage them, get up and move
They don't
during the
even get.
day? Get up and wiggle your body during the
I had to
day.
actually start asking people because it didn't occur to me that nobody moves until finally people started telling me, like, I never move. Like, I don't move unless I go to the bathroom all day. And I'm like, oh my God. Like, it doesn't even occur to me that
Yeah.
that's happening.
Yeah, and so it's wild how that actually gets set up because as a kid, like they will spontaneously move and they have to be told repeatedly to stop wiggling,
Yeah,
right? So when
right.
you're in kindergarten, first, second
Yeah.
grade, kids have to be told repeatedly to stop wiggling because their natural spontaneous inclination is to wiggle.
Yeah.
So think about this for a second. Over time, when they're told again and again to stop wiggling, and they're taught that wiggling is bad, wrong, socially inappropriate. And what happens then when they're not wiggling anymore? At a certain point in time, they have to actually stop themselves from wiggling
Right.
because they feel like the wiggle coming on, and they say, "Oh, I'm not supposed to wiggle." So now they have to use muscle tension to stop the wiggling. So they have to use a part of their body, they have to use their conscious muscles to stop their subconscious regulation,
which takes
okay? Which takes
energy.
energy. But then over time, what happens is that happens long enough. Pretty soon, they don't even have the initiative, not the initiative, uh, not the spontaneity to wiggle.
Yeah,
The
the
impulse, like
impulse.
the
Yeah,
impulse is actually repressed so deep into their
they
system
don't even think they
they
need
don't
to
even
wiggle.
they don't even
They
feel
don't
like they
even
need to wiggle
think
anymore.
about wiggling.
And that suppression is also done with chronic muscle tension. So at first there's a conscious amount of tension that needs to be applied to the subconscious wiggling, and eventually there's that conscious tension turns into subconscious tension, which is impeding even the sensation of wiggling.
And you think we're just talking about wiggling, but this is how you learn to control yourself. And it's like when you're this young that all of those self-controlling mechanisms are set up. It's when you're 2, 3, 4, 5, that when you're 35, 45,
Mm.
55, and you're trying to live your life and you can't figure out why. And we're saying it's because of chronic muscle tension. Like,
Yeah.
this is why.
Yeah, and it shows up later as things that you aren't even connected to the wiggling. Like chronic muscle tension is the underlying cause of just about all chronic disease because chronic muscle tension inhibits blood flow, creates inflammation, chronic pain, breathing issues, cardiovascular problems. That's really the number one cause of heart disease is chronic muscle tension,
Making me
right?
just want to
So
wiggle right
there's
now,
all
Brian.
of this stuff, but that stuff gets baked into Ani's point very early on to a point where we're an adult. We don't even have an impulse to wiggle anymore because it's buried so deep in the nervous system because of chronic muscle tension. And so we work with people who are sitting at the computer saying, my back hurts, my neck hurts, my legs hurt because of the chronic muscle tension that's been in place for so long, impeding the natural regulation mechanisms. And then when we give them a suggestion to do natural regulation mechanisms, they feel weird and strange. This isn't right. It feels wrong to do
So
it.
I'll literally give clients the homework of I want you to wiggle for 2 minutes every day. And then months will go by and they can't get themselves to do it. They forget about it. They feel weird about it. Like all kinds of stuff. They procrastinate. Other stuff comes up that's quote unquote more important. All this stuff. And when it really comes down to like the allowing themselves to do the wiggle, like it can stuff can come up,
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah.
right?
Yeah. You start
Because they've been
tapping into
repressing
all
all of
that
that stuff
repressed stuff.
their whole life.
Mhm.
It's like the biggest deal. They'll be like, this doesn't
Big
seem
deal.
too important. I'm like, this is literally the most important thing you're going to do for 2 minutes every day.
Yeah, it's so huge, so huge. Okay, so rocking is another one. That's
Hmm.
a pretty clear one for again when you see a child who has been upset, and you'll see them kind of go into a spontaneous rocking. Also for babies, right? When a baby's upset,
We
we
rock
rock
them.
them.
Yeah. And to my point about telling people that when I twitch or shake that I'm okay. So if we were to do this, then we would be signaling to other people I'm not okay. And then somebody might come up and say, "Are you okay?"
Yeah.
And then all the stuff that goes on with having to manage that, which usually involves having to manage their emotions, by the way, or how uncomfortable they are that you're not okay.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I noticed for myself, and I've noticed in other people too, during meditation practice. Like when I meditate, when I get to a certain sense of stillness, I know I've met that place because my body will actually naturally start rocking.
Yeah, yeah,
It'll just, and I can
absolutely.
just watch it rock.
It's
It's
just a
just doing it. It's just
lovely,
doing its
wonderful
thing, and I'm meditating,
place.
and my body's just rocking. It's really kind of cool.
Feels
So
so good.
rocking is a natural mechanism, as well. Okay, sighing. Boy, sighing's one of my
That's
favorite
another
ones,
one.
right?
Are you okay? What's the matter?
Yeah. And so when we sigh,
We sigh naturally. Like, do you know how many
every
times?
5 minutes.
Every 5 minutes. Thank you. I knew
Yeah.
you'd know.
About every 5 minutes, there's actually a part of your brain
If you
that's
don't sigh,
dedicated to sighing. There's actually a nerve cluster in your brain. I don't remember the name of it, but it's dedicated to sighing. And when they do experiments with rats, I'm sorry, rats, when they lesion that part of the brain, actually the rats die
it's that important.
because they're not sighing. So there's all these physiological mechanisms around sighing that we talk about in our somatic Practice Essentials program, our level 1 training. We go into kind of the depth around those kinds of things, but there's really important physiological mechanisms for sighing around opening up the alveoli in the lungs. It also induces a parasympathetic shift. And to Ani's point, if you've been around somebody and they sigh, you can get really irritated with them, right? Because we've been taught
Yeah.
that we're not supposed to make
You're making
noises. And
noise.
why are you
Yeah.
making
Why are you
noises?
making noise? Yeah. And then what's wrong? And if you're a caretaking human, you're like, are you okay? And if you're not, you're just annoyed.
Yeah. So I remember it was a few years ago. We were in the kitchen and I was doing some sighing, and you're like, "What's going on?" And I'm like, "Nothing.
Nothing.
I'm just regulating. I'm
Fine.
just doing my thing. I figure if you're gonna sigh every 5 minutes or so anyway, and that we sigh when we are creating a lot of tension in the system that needs to be vented off, why not just do it prophylactically?"
Let's do one right
Yeah.
now.
I'll do that with us here, listeners. Try it. Let's see how you feel after. Big deep breath in. Ah,
Love a good sigh.
have a good sigh. Awesome.
So good.
So that's one right there. Um, oh, this is one of my favorites too.
They're all your favorites. Come on.
Wringing of the hands.
Oh, yeah, that's a good
Like you
one.
ever notice when someone's worried about something,
But you can do it. You can do it ahead of time
what
too.
do?
That feels really good.
They wring their
Girl,
hands.
there's so many acupressure points
Right.
in
And
the
think
hands, right?
flexology point.
Yeah.
Well, there's a
There's a
key
whole.
one right there
Yeah.
in the web space of the thumb, which gets a lot of action when you're
Don't press
wringing
on
your
that if you're
hands.
pregnant,
Don't
by the
press on it
way.
if you're pregnant, unless you
Yeah.
want to have a baby.
Yep.
Not like you want to get pregnant, but you actually want to go into labor, um, because that will do that. But that spot actually relieves worry and anxiety
Yeah.
in Chinese medicine. So when I learned that, I was like, isn't it interesting? Because if you
That's
watch
another one.
somebody
They
and they're,
tell kids don't fidget.
yeah, don't fit.
Don't fidget.
But when people are worried about something, they naturally wring their hands together. And so that's a natural mechanism that the body's trying to do to center itself.
Yep.
But we can say, don't fidget, put your hands in your pockets, like stop wringing your hands, sort of thing. And teachers can do that. And what then they're doing is they're taking away a child's natural self-regulation mechanisms. So I thought that's a kind of a cool.
By the way, shout out to all the teachers out there because teachers, that's like an awesome job and their teachers are awesome.
Yeah, sure.
Right? And people are doing the best they possibly can at all times based on how they were taught and I mean, what they're taught in school and what they were taught by their mentors and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Shout out to teachers.
Yeah, and actually, I want to do a podcast in the future really quickly with two of our core centering students who are actually higher ed teachers, and
Working
they
with
train teachers
teachers, yeah,
in elementary school level
using this stuff.
using this stuff, and they had a whole project doing those things. And when I heard about it, I was literally wanted to cry.
Yeah.
It was like
It's
so
so cool.
wonderful
Yeah.
that to know that this work is being brought into the schools.
For teachers.
And for teachers to use. Just
How
so
frustrating is it
amazing.
to be a teacher?
So amazing.
Jeez.
Okay, we got another one for you. Stomping your feet. So when a kid like just wants to like stomp their feet around and have like, a tantrum time sort of thing.
Yeah.
Well, it turns out that there's a primary acupuncture pressure point on the bottom of the foot called the kidney 1 point. And it's really good at grounding the energy in the body and also for calming down the heart mind.
And what an amazing way to release energy out your feet, which is actually a super functional way to release energy.
Yep.
Because a lot of people, because they're taught not to move, end up releasing energy out their mouth and saying stuff they don't want to say, or they get anxiety or headaches and stuff like that, or they, somatize stuff. So releasing energy out the feet is so great. That's another one where I will say to a client, they'll be talking about how angry they are about something. I'll say, well, have you thrown a tantrum? And they're like, what do you mean throw a tantrum? Have you tried to throw a tantrum? They're like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. Yeah. When you throw a tantrum, it's like you're resourcing multiple things,
Fantastic.
right? You're slamming your hands, you're stomping your feet, you're crying, you're
So
screaming,
good.
you're shaking, you're vibrating, right? It's a way that really is a fantastic self-regulation strategy.
Yeah.
Really great self-regulation strategy. Okay. So another one is just, placing your hands on your heart.
Love this one. I do this almost every single day for
Mm.
myself. And I'll just do like a really gentle rub.
Yeah.
It is one of my very favorite, I don't even know what to call it, self-care strategies, manifestation
Mm.
strategies, being human strategy. Like I just love it so much.
And it
Do it
feels, so
every single
when
day.
you do that, how does it feel to do that?
Really comforting,
Mm. Yeah. So
centering, comforting.
there's a point right on the middle of the sternum called the Sea of Tranquility point. And again, it's a point that specifically helps to calm down heart mind distress. Right. So that's just a natural. So when people put their hand on their heart, they're naturally doing some self-regulation mechanisms by doing that. So that's a cool one. Crying.
I love
Oh,
crying.
you want to talk about crying?
Crying's the best.
Mm.
Are you kidding me? I read something, God, I don't even remember at this point where I read it that said crying washes your DNA.
Mm.
And I loved that so much. But that's another one where if you're crying, first of all, ladies, if you're listening to this, stop apologizing for crying. I mean, don't let me tell you what to do. I'm telling you what to do. Stop apologizing. It's a natural process, right?
Mm.
How many times have we had specifically ladies in class who are heart centered people who have feelings like normal human beings who have some tears come and they say, I'm sorry, I'm crying. Don't apologize for being a human. Um, Crying feels amazing to just wash things away. And I love to cry. When crying comes, I've come to really be friends with it and appreciate it. And I got to this place where I was really experiencing some deep grief in my life. Maybe a little bit because of what was going on in my life, but I felt like I was washing like generations worth of grief out of my system. And I remember a day that my son came, knocked on my door when I was crying, like wailing, crying, right? And he said, Mom, are you okay? And I was just like I was so good. And I said, I am so good. I am really enjoying crying. He's like, Do you need anything? I said, No, just like let me cry. I was just so comfortable with myself. So I am a huge fan of crying.
Yeah, from a nervous system perspective, crying shifts the nervous system towards a parasympathetic nervous system state. So autonomic nervous system, right? We have sympathetic nervous system, which is the fight or flight side, parasympathetic nervous system, which is that rest and digest side. So when a nervous system builds up a lot of tension in it, it needs to find a way to release that tension. Otherwise, it could damage the organism, right? Too much tension in the system will cut off blood flow, create all kinds of problems. So the organism will kind of override at that point what someone wants to do. Like someone might be like, I don't want to cry. But if the nervous system is like, listen, we got to let go of this tension
Yeah,
somehow, or we're going to
it's
create a
happening.
big problem. It's happening. So the
Here,
nervous
this
system
is
kind of takes over the nervous system. And in order to regulate and preserve itself, and crying is one of the ways it does that. So it shifts into a parasympathetic nervous system state. It vents tension. It calms the system down. Because oftentimes after you have a really good cry, you feel more like balanced, right?
yeah,
Your nervous system feels
absolutely.
more
You
relaxed.
feel better.
And that's an instant. Now, the other cool thing that I had read too is that the lacrimal glands, the tear glands, are innervated by the parasympathetic nervous system. So tears are basically directly linked to that parasympathetic nervous system response, which lets you know that again you're releasing tension,
Hmm.
you're moving towards the healing kind of side of the nervous system
Right,
to basically support what you're talking about in terms of tears and crying being very healing.
right.
Your nervous system agrees with that, basically what your nervous system is saying
I
as
would
well.
say my nervous system does agree with that.
Yep.
Here's another thing about crying. You don't have to make it mean anything because people want to know what's the matter. You don't have to have anything that's the matter.
Just say my nervous system is regulating itself.
Yeah, you don't have to explain it because as soon as, because that's the typical
Yep.
thing is someone's crying and then we're taught to say, what's the matter? And then guess what? We think we have to come up with a response, which means that we're making meaning off of something that's perfectly normal. And then we start to attach stories to this perfectly normal thing that's happening that may or may not be accurate. And then we're further confirming past storied conditioned belief about what that means.
Yeah. I will say really quickly too, my theory about heart disease being more prevalent in men than women is linked to this thing
Because they
in
cry
particularly.
less.
Yeah, because men are conditioned not to cry at all,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I know there's a song, big girls don't cry.
Well, big girls do cry, but
but
men
men
are
don't
taught
cry. They're taught
not
not
to
to
cry.
cry.
It's
Like
it's
literally, like it is
it's like life or
not
death for
acceptable to
for some
cry.
people. Yeah.
And so that can condition in the men, which means that we have one less spontaneous way to cry because it's been
To
so
regulate the nervous
deeply,
system.
yeah, exactly, to regulate the nervous system. It's been so deeply, again, repressed in the system. Going back to what we were talking about with wiggling, is that for a lot of times men don't even feel the initiative to cry because it's so buried deep down. And then so it's held back, and that holding back continues to constrict the cardiovascular system in a way that creates more opportunity for heart disease to occur.
I'm with you on that.
So that's my
I think
theory
that's a
on that.
really good hypothesis.
Okay, and then we have one more, which you mentioned right in the beginning was laughing. Yeah.
Laughing. Yeah. I think that's a weird one, I think, because there's plenty of stuff out there on the internet that tells us that we should laugh more, but somehow we don't have the impulse to laugh more. We've like lost the impulse to laugh more. Because how many times a day do kids laugh? And how often do we tell them to be
Mhm.
quiet? So at some point along the way, we learn to, again, correct our behavior and modulate ourselves. And that kind of, especially like big laughter,
Yeah.
is too loud or not okay in some way. And like we've been there. We have three kids that used to live in our house. And if three kids are, especially big kids, are all laughing, like it is loud. So it
Mhm.
can be tough to be with that much
How
noise
much
and stuff.
laughter? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
But the
But it's
science of
so
laughter is
healthy.
really cool, right? Because I have a list right here. Right? It increases. This is research supported laughter. Increases circulation, improves oxygen intake, decreases blood pressure, optimizes neurotransmitters like dopamine, serotonin, and endorphins. It increases immunity and reduces muscle tension. So
Kind of
like
good for you.
how can you not like laughing
Yeah.
for really? And I can say for me,
You've
laughing was
learned
not
to
always
laugh.
easy for me.
Yeah.
And as I have learned to laugh more over the years, I know it has supported my health in more positive ways.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we laugh spontaneously all the time now. I think for me, basically, because I do all the other things
Yeah.
more intentionally, and then the laughter can just flow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah, boy, I think we need a break because both of us just really like got passionate
I
about
don't
that
even
one
know how
stuff.
long we've been here on this. Has it been an hour? I mean, I usually watch the clock
Right.
when we're doing these things, but I'm like, I could just keep going. This topic is so riveting for me. So I just want to thank you, listeners,
Thanks for
for
listening.
listening and just allowing us to kind of spout on about the body's outlawed wisdom.
So try some of these techniques, pass this along to someone else who needs to hear it. Because I guarantee you've got a friend who apologizes when they cry or tries not to move or make too much noise or all that. And like they got to hear it too.
Mhm.
So share this one out because everybody needs to hear it. It's going to make a big difference
Cool. All
in
right.
your life and the life of others.
Thanks so much, friends, for joining us. We'll see you again next week.
See you next week. Bye
Bye bye.
bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode. We hope that this conversation will help you improve your practice and change the way you think about your work, your clients, and yourself.
Continue your exploration of trauma-sensitive somatic coaching by listening to more podcast episodes at somaticcoachingacademy.com. You could be the trusted guide that people turn to help them with their most challenging situations and to reach their most precious goals. Thank you for joining us.
We'll see you next time.